and it let out this blood-curdling, guttural scream.
On the side of the road, he sees a deer carcass and something eating on it, which he thought was a bear. And as the lights hit it, it stood up. And, like, this gives me chills talking about it. He said it stood up and it had the face of a man.
Hey, everybody. It's Bryan Sawyer coming at you for another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show. This is episode 61. And as you can tell, my demeanor is a little bit different today. And the reason why is because I don't know our guest that's about to be on here in a moment, but I've been blown away by her story. I got a chance to go over her book last night a little bit. Get online, check her out on social media. She was referred to me by a very good friend. And her name is Samantha Leifker. Now, Samantha Leifker is an author of the book called Born Awakened. Now, we are going to talk about multiple things today. And for the folks at home, this to me is one of my most important episodes because Samantha's path has been similar to mine. As I told her, she's in the green room right now. As I told her before I hit the record button, we have some similar level of encounters. I haven't had the same kind of encounters as Samantha, but what I'm talking about is the level of encounters. You know, you can fall asleep one night, you can have a dream, and you might wake up the next morning. It might be kind of vague, or it might be a really clear dream, or it's what I call a God dream, where you come out, you are emotionally affected. I remember one particular dream of mine that I haven't really told people. I was held in a space. I had just met Michael the Archangel, and then God the Father as a spirit came down this stairway. And every step he took from his foot, life sprouted forth, birds and vines and beautiful music and everything. And he moved me over to a corner and he spoke some things to me, which, to keep the story short, changed my life. And that was one of those dreams that I came out of and I was screaming because of just the pain of coming back into this world after being in the presence of God. And absolutely amazing encounter. So when I started getting more familiar with Samantha, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to talk to this girl. And I'll tell you right now, everybody, we're going to have her on again after this episode. I'm going to try to get her on the Bigfoots of Michigan TV show. So let's go ahead. Hey, man, let me shut up. Go ahead and bring Samantha in. Everybody, author Samantha Leifker. How you doing, Samantha?
Hey, great. How are you?
Fantastic. As I said in the green room, thanks for your patience. We've been crazy busy trying to get the TV platform up and running, podcast, everything's going bigger. And one of our big things is we always want to be orientated around our eyewitnesses who are our family and our friends. And now I already consider you that. I know you don't know me at all, but man, after the last 24 hours, just kind of soaked myself up with some of the information that has happened in your life. It has
Yeah.
been absolutely mind-blowing, to say the least. So, Samantha, I like starting from the beginning. You
Okay.
know, when
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had what I would call a supernatural experience as a child. And so I want to jump to you now, and I want us to hear your story as it unfolded. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my first encounter ever happened before I could really even speak. And I had to have been maybe only a year or two old. And what I remember was being out of body at the top of the staircase at the Britton house, which is what I call the poltergeist house that I was born and raised in. And so I was at the top of the staircase and I was in my spiritual body. And from my age now, like thinking about it, I kind of assume that I was probably upstairs in the bedrooms taking a nap, and these beings assisted me out of body to have this experience. But so to my left and to my right were these golden beings, and well, they were transparent, and every one of their details was outlined in this gold glitter, so you could see through them, but they had all these beautiful details that were this shimmering gold. It was amazing. And so there was one on my left and one on my right, and one was at the bottom of the staircase looking up at me. And they had wings, and they were like these childlike beings. They were kind of like your typical cherub looking kind of being. Yeah. And so they spoke telepathically to me, and they also transferred everything else telepathically to what they were thinking and their emotions and their intentions. And um, also, I believe some of their abilities and things like that were transferred that way.
Okay.
And so they wanted me to lift off of the ground and fly with them down the staircase. And I just remember I can still feel this sensation. Like every time I talk about this, I can just like I try and like imagine being there again. And so like I felt all of these currents of energy, like like I was in an ocean of this, like all of these different currents. It's so hard to put words on, because
Mm-hmm.
it was so much more heightened and charged than like we feel in this physical body. It was like unexplainable. But basically I was like, there were these currents that were coming out of me, out of my spiritual body. There were these currents that were coming out of the beings that were next to me. There were currents that were just all around me, swirling everywhere and going everywhere, and just seeming that they were in the atmosphere. And so these golden beings that were with me, it was like they transferred to me telepathically, like, okay, let's lift off of the ground and fly. And I kind of understood that I had to use the energy from within myself and have it interact with these currents that were around me to move through them and lift up into them and move forward and up and down and left and right. And so I did. I lifted off of the ground and I was levitating between these gold beings. And so then they kind of like encouraged me to move forward and start floating down the staircase. And so I did. I leaned forward and they followed me on my left and right as I floated down the staircase. And I remember seeing the steps like pass beneath my feet as I'm like, just like floating down the staircase. And I just see the steps like, like passing under my feet. Um, and so when we got to the bottom and met the third one, they celebrated with me. And they were like, I was surrounded by these three golden beings around me at the bottom of the staircase. And like, they were blasting me with this love and with this encouragement and with this just these amazing feelings, the celebration. Like they were so proud of me. And they didn't use words for this, and they didn't really use facial expressions either, like we do when we're happy or, when we're excited. They were just kind of like, they just kind of have these straight, kind looks on their faces, but it was the energy that they were sending me that was telling me how they were feeling and what they were thinking. And yeah, so that was my first memory of my life.
Would you label that as, see, to me you're kind of being trained for what's it called, astral projection, or
Mhm.
man, I mean, you're flying. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that? That was kind of like your first. I felt like they were training you. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely I know they were training me by how it went and how it happened, and like it was definitely like they came to teach me something, you know?
Okay,
And I was out of body. Um
gotcha.
and that was the first of countless out of hundreds and hundreds of out of body experiences throughout my life. Um, Most of them I was assisted out by beings that would come and say, "It's time to come out of your body now. You need to do
Gotcha.
this, or you need to learn this, or yeah,
Good
yeah.
job. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was the first experience there. And ever since the beginning of my life, uh, there was like this poltergeist activity at that house, um, and I know that even if I wasn't born there, if I was born somewhere else, somehow I know that they still would have came to me, these golden beings, and also the other beings that came to me, like the good ones.
Hmm.
Maybe not the malevolent ones were in the house, but these good
Okay.
beings that were there to help me and guide me. I know that somehow I just know I still would have seen them, but I do
Is
like.
is
Sorry, go
this a
ahead.
location? No, that's okay. I'm trying to remember some of what I read last night. Is this the same house that had the giant bat creature, and your brother was like, "Hey, there's something in here," and
Yeah.
tell us about that real quick. So you actually had both. Well, they're probably, who knows how much they intermingled. Sorry, I get deep sometimes.
No,
But
you love it.
so so you were visited by the golden beings, but yet at times there were also these evil type spirits in there as well. Tell us about this bat creature and your brother and that encounter.
Yeah, so there was one morning where my brother came and he ran down the hallway and ran into my room, and he told me it was kind of like when we were waking up in the morning. Um and he came in and told me, he's like, "Sam, there's something in my room." He told me he had this dream, but he didn't think it was just a dream. And now that he woke up and he felt this crazy sensation in his room, he knew, he was like, now I know it's not just a dream." But his dream, there was this like big bat like beast that was attacking him and bit him on his side. And then he kind of like, he woke up and he felt pins and needles, like all these needles poking at his body in his room. And as soon as he stopped out, he didn't feel them anymore. And so he was like, it's still in my room. And me and
Okay.
him at this point, this is our everyday life. Like, we're used to things like this happening on a regular basis.
Wow.
This specific one, that was the first time we encountered that specific entity that was like the pins and needles feeling. But this kind of thing, like, that's why he came to me right away. He's like, let's you gotta let's figure this out because this thing is not
Hmm.
good. Um, so I was like, okay, let me go in there. And so I walked down the hallway and he's behind me. And as soon as I put my foot through his doorway and it passes and it gets into his room, the needles, just thousands of needles, start hitting my skin as I'm coming through the doorway, like a wave over me. And then I'm in the room and then my brother comes in and same thing, he feels the same thing. And all of these thousands of needles are just poking my skin everywhere. And we just kind of stood there for a minute looking at each other like, whoa. And I think that's what we said. Um, and so we could I could feel this heavy, heavy presence in the room. Like there was something right in front of us. We
Okay.
just couldn't see it with our physical eyes, but we could feel it. It was
Okay.
undeniable, the sensation. And so what I did was I spoke to it and I told it that it's not welcome here, that it needs to leave, that we have authority over it, that I'm aware of who I am. And
Awesome.
yeah, and so we both felt the pins and needle sensation kind of like come off of us. And
Mhm.
I sensed the being leave out of his window because he had one bedroom window right next to his bed. And I could
Mhm.
just, me and him agreed, we felt like it left through the window.
Mm.
And so what happened after that, so he sat on his bed right after it left and he lifted up his shirt and there were these bite marks on his side. And
Mm.
so that was when I sat next to him and I just gave him a hug and we were just like, that was one of the that was definitely a really wild experience. And the thing is just days later, I was across town at my dad's house and I was getting ready to go to bed one night. And so I had this so this is not at the Britton house because that was where my mom stayed. After my parents divorced, my mom stayed at the Britton house and my dad lived across town. And so I was there across town and there was this little window next to my bed and I felt that I wasn't alone. And I then all of a sudden I felt this pins and needle sensation come over my body like a wave from the window side. And then it just whoosh came over my whole body and I was covered in this sensation. And I knew that this was a second story window. And so I basically refused to look out the window at that point. Like I didn't even want to see just in case I could see it. I just kind of like looked the other way and I just started speaking to it and I told it like, you can't come here. You can't follow me around like that, and telling it to leave. And then it didn't have authority over me and things like that. And it left. I felt the sensation go away and I felt that heavy presence leave. But yeah, so that was the last time I encountered that entity. And that my brother encountered it. That was the last time he encountered it. But that was the only time that I could recall that something at the Britton house that was malicious or seemed malicious, like followed me somewhere else to have an encounter.
Mhm.
I feel like it was kind of trying to get it, maybe wanted to get revenge, because I kicked it out of the house.
Mm. It's
Um,
interesting. Let's rewind a little bit. You said a couple of key things that is so important for people to know out there is that you have the authority, that you know who you are. Who
yeah.
told you about all that? Who told you about your authority, your God-given authority, and that you know who you are, where your identity lies? How did you learn about that?
Um, just as a foundation, I was raised Christian. But I mean, it wasn't, it really, I think it was my own experiences and my own encounters that, because, but before that encounter, there was years that of my young childhood between like the age of like 5 and probably 9 that
Hmm.
I was assisted out of body and placed before different entities in the house and made to face them over and over again
Mm.
until I figured out how to take authority over them. And it was just kind of this, I don't know, it was just kind of always a part of me. Like from my first memory encountering those gold beings, that that just put something inside of me that it was just an understanding, it was a knowing, it was
Right.
just, and the more that I learned and the more that I experienced. And I also have a grandmother that did also mention authority, because I would tell her a few things as I grew up, things that me and my brother would encounter. And, she also kind of implemented that, into, so I could, do more on that and understand, but like who I am, who we are. But yeah, you're right. That's that there isn't too much in life that's more important than us understanding who we really are and who made us and why we're
Hmm.
here. And our purpose and our abilities and our true identity. And like in this modern society, like the masses have really forgotten
Mm.
who, our abilities and who we really are. Like, what can humans really do?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it
My
it
my point being is you're fortunate enough to establish that at a young age. And as you're saying, I think that so many people don't know who they are. So what happens? They get wrapped up in fear and doubt, and then they're stuck in the same quagmire their whole life, and they're not able to advance. And they basically live under this cover of fear. And you were able to break out of it. It's so important because that's what these dark entities want to do. They want to come in, they want to exert their authority over you. They want to
yeah,
keep you held down in fear and in darkness because of whatever jealousies. We don't know the total storyline, that's all that has happened in ancient times, but for
right.
whatever reason, a lot of them aren't happy with us. They're jealous, they hate us, all of that. And so I commend you that you had that wherewithal to be able to know who you are and to take that authority. So, man, fantastic. Well, I'm ready to keep moving on. I'm sorry I interrupt you. I'm so excited about your story. So, what kind of evolved after that? What things were kind of happening?
So, with the poltergeist activity, there was anything from heavy footsteps and stomps following you around to being woken up at night to something running towards you and then stopping right next to you and having cold things like cold air blasts in your face and seeing apparitions, hearing voices. And there were also times when me and my brother and also past residents, and I'll get into that in a minute, would be lifted at the top of the staircase into the air and pushed all the way down to the bottom.
Whoa.
So that was something that happened at least probably a couple dozen times throughout my childhood. And so when you're upstairs on the second floor and you are getting onto the staircase, there's a few steps that you go down, and then there's like a flat landing. Then you turn to the right, and then like the majority of the staircase is, the rest of the way down. And so as soon as you get on that landing and you turn, and then all of a sudden you're like lifted into the air, and my legs and my arms would be up in the air, and I would just be on my back, and then you would just be shot all the way down, and the center of my back would hit every single step on the way down. And it was so fast, like I don't even know how whoever was doing that, how they did it, because it was like they held you upright so that your legs and arms could be up in the air, and only the center of your back would just do 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 do, all the way down the stairs.
Wow.
And
Mm.
there had to have been, I don't know, probably at least 16 or 17 steps, on that main part of the staircase that you would hit. And then when you would get to the bottom, I wasn't able to breathe. And I literally
Mm.
couldn't even take air into my lungs. It was like they were sealed shut. And it was just in the nick of time that I was able to breathe in air, like right before I would suffocate, basically. So I would be
Oh.
so worried, like every time, please, like I hope I get to breathe in time. And then I would, right on time, like right before, you start to feel like uncomfortable. And that happened to my brother. And then actually, while I was writing my book, I had the privilege of talking to a woman that lived at the Britton House in the 80s, a decade before I lived there. And her sister were lifted and shot all the way down that staircase so many times that their mother was the one to carpet those steps, because they were carpeted when we moved in and when we grew up. And it was like that old shaggy pink carpet, but with her, it was still bare wood. And I was just like, I couldn't imagine how much that hurt, because it hurt with carpet. But yeah, so the same thing happened to them.
I
Yeah,
got
so
to
that was
interject because I'm trying to find it. Does this Britain House still exist? And
mhm.
where, I don't need can you say the city, or we can do it off air if you want? I
Oh,
would
it's
personally like to know where this is at.
yeah. So I can't give away the address, but it's in
Not a problem.
The Morris Park neighborhood in Lansing, Michigan.
Okay, great. I'm
Yep.
gonna be there. I got to do a little TV show out there in a couple of weeks. Yeah, in Lansing. Okay, say this again. The Morris Park area, Lansing.
Yep. Yep. There's a park. It's it's kind of right off of the Grand River. You'll see Morris Park, Moores.
Okay.
Yep, it's right in that neighborhood. So
Okay, because
yep.
I'm sorry. I knew this would be a fun conversation. I just visited a house where there was a Wendigo. Do you know what a Wendigo is?
Yeah, I've read on those a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was just at a location where a man got attacked by a Wendigo, had to shoot
Wow.
it, had to give the old in the name of Jesus and 12 gauge shotgun point blank range right in his chest. It didn't kill it, but it got it to leave, and him
Wow.
covered in the blood. So yeah, I mean, I'm very interested. I understand that we're supposed to flee every appearance of evil and you don't give place to these things, but I also believe what you're talking about in understanding who you are and having authorities over these entities. And then as you get to know me, I'll tell you about the big production dream I had with God and how he explained a lot about Michigan and
Wow.
how it's been oppressed with dark spirits and entities, and that he has given us authority to chase them out. Um,
Wow.
so it's an amazing topic. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm a guy, I got two boys. I raised two little boys. We didn't sit around watching Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, and the next thing I know, I got a fairy talking to me, hovering in front of my face, and I'm communicating back with it. And I'll tell you that story later. Everybody who listens to the show knows that story, so you'll find out about it. So I'm so intrigued. It fascinates me that there are so many different types of creatures, different types of beings, different types of humans. I mean, it's like I
Yeah.
always say, my big enlightening moment with God was when I'm like, oh, hey, God, does Bigfoot exist? I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, hey, idiot, go look up how many different types of insects there are. I grew up in Birmingham, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. And what do we know about insects? Ants and grasshoppers and crickets and mosquito and the occasional butterfly. So I probably knew about five, maybe 10 at the most, right? So I go look up now on Google, a few years back, and anywhere from what up to 300 million different types of insects. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, if you apply that to just the differences between humans, between cats and dogs, the different types of all of us, then you throw this into the spiritual interdimensional realm, and there we can't write them all down. There's so many different
Right.
types of entities, creatures, beings, whatever you want to call them. So, anyways, I'm totally geeked to have you here. So I interrupted you again, of course, but all of this crazy stuff, other people who lived there before you at the Britton House in Lansing, Michigan area had the same kind. Now, and then what you were telling me about reminded me of the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Oh my gosh. So now I've been hit in the chest. I've been punched in the chest by a dark entity. So I
Okay.
get it. Not to
Yeah.
your level though. So all right, let's pick up where we left off. I'm so sorry. Um, so you've been accosted. The people who lived there before you've been accosted in this Britton house in Lansing, Michigan. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, also the current residents I'm in contact with, and I keep everyone anonymous at this point, but
Cool.
they have also had encounters. So there was an entity that my brother saw when he was about 6 years old, and he was woken up, and it was kind of one of those feelings where when you're woken up by a person, versus like when you just kind of naturally wake up, like if you had a dream or you just woke up, but like, someone woke you and like you can feel that other presence that woke you. And so he had that feeling someone woke him, and in his doorway, and this guy I draw him for the cover of the book, and his picture is also inside the book. We call him the
Okay.
doorman because he was in the doorway, and it was this like kind of, he was pretty solid, and it was like this 8 or 9 foot tall, kind of like old skeleton man with a flannel and jeans on. Like he was so tall that his shoulders were like hunched down just so he could see into the room, and his head was kind of like,
Wow.
yeah. And so he was just staring at my brother, and he was just there filling the whole doorway. And so my brother just closed his eyes after seeing him for a minute. He decided just, because he was only 6 years old. And so he closed his eyes, and after a little while, he kind of felt that he was alone again. And so he opened his eyes and he was gone. And the current residents have seen tall blue jeans in the bedroom areas, but just without the upper half of the body, which is funny how certain entities can like show the bottom half of themselves or the top half of themselves. I
Right.
know I've heard of other stories of this as well, where you have one person's ends up seeing a similar sighting, but it's like half of it. So yeah, that was something else that like another resident other than us encountered. And yeah,
Wow.
so
That
at the
that
Britton
reminds me
house.
of Slender. That reminds me of what? Slender Man, or one
Yeah.
of a friend of mine, author George Lunsford, also could fit the description of what we would refer to as a rake. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but he's got this book called Monsters of the World, where he just
Ooh,
lists so many. He's got multiple books, but it's kind of like my reference guide. Like, oh, she just said, okay, that's like a rake. But go
nice. I'll
ahead.
have to look at that book.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've heard of those too. And so something else that would happen at the Britton house growing up that was really memorable was, so the attic doorway to go up into the attic, and this house was built in 1923, and so it's not super super old, but it's old enough to be kind
Sure.
of like you know strange a little bit. So the only bathroom in the house was down the hallway from my bedroom upstairs, and the attic doorway was right across in the bathroom from like the sink and the toilet. So if you had to go to
Okay.
the bathroom at night, the attic doorway was right in front of you across the room, and the attic staircase ran along the bathroom wall going up into the attic. And the staircase was just this super narrow little wooden staircase that like only one person could fit up. And um, the attic door, when you opened it, the inside was covered in names, and it was like carved and written. The whole entire door was just covered, and it actually went up the wall as well, as if like whoever was writing these names couldn't fit them all in the inside of the door. And so that kind of made like that whole area even creepier, and you could feel it too. You could feel these things in that area of the house a lot. But there was something regular was like there would be heavy footsteps that would stomp down the staircase if you're in the bathroom at night. But there was this one night that I heard it stomp back up for the first time. And so I was going to the bathroom, and my mom and my brother were asleep. It was pretty late. And I heard it, whatever it was, stomp, 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 stomp all the way down. But this time it was like, it was so obnoxious. Its stomping was like, it was like crashing its feet on purpose every single step until it hit the bottom, and it just stood there in silence on the other side of the door. And I was frozen. I was just like trying to slowly breathe, and just like I didn't know what was going to happen, because this thing just stopped on the other side of the doorway. And I expected like the door is going to swing open and I'm going to see this thing. It's going to swing open. And so I just started going super fast, as I could, trying to get out of the bathroom. But before I could, it went back up the staircase and it just slammed its feet and stomped all the way back up into the attic. And so I ran out of the bathroom and ran down the hallway and shut my bedroom door. And it was not as easy to get to sleep that specific night. But this is something that we would hear above our bedrooms as well. Like at night, we would hear these stomps that would come and they would stop right above our bed. And then you wouldn't hear them again. And then all of a sudden you would hear them somewhere else. And they were clear human heavy footsteps, you know. But yeah, that was something else that happened there. That was kind of on the freakier side.
And that was with your mother. I'm sure you told your mother as kids, you're like, Mom. What was her reply?
She didn't really understand. So it was kind of just between me and my brother.
Which is possible. Everybody at home, just so you know, if Samantha and I were standing next to each other and we're both, say, looking north, it is possible for her to see and experience something and me to be standing there going, what? I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. So that is, man. Oh,
yeah.
my goodness. On one hand, I'm sorry you went through all this because that has got to be terrifying as a child. But on the other hand, oh my goodness, the strength and knowledge that you have and are able now to share it with others is amazing. But keep going. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's one reason why I wrote my book, is because I always knew, like from when I was really, really little, like maybe 3 or 4 years old, that these other beings, they communicated to me telepathically that I'm going to write a book about things that I've seen when I'm older. And when that time came a couple years ago, it was like, I am so excited to like be able to share my story with other people and to be able to also like be a voice for people who feel like they can't talk about this kind of stuff, you know, if they've had encounters or if it's like, because there's so many people out there who feel like, you know, they can't talk about it. They would be called crazy. They would lose their family. They would lose their job. I mean, who knows, you know, their reputation would get ruined, whatever. Or just the emotions that come from just bringing it up again and not burying it. Depending on the type of experience, I guess. But yeah, it was, I would never take any of it back. Like all of the nights I slept all night with my light on, all the nights that I had all these crazy encounters, all of the fear, I would never take it back, because I learned so much, and the value that those experiences had is like, yeah, I would never take it back. And so when I'll go over the when I was taken to a cube shaped UFO, sorry.
No, don't be sorry for anything. This is spectacular.
So when I was about 6 or 7, I was laying in bed one night, and this was the second really incredible, like heavenly encounter that I had when I was a kid. That was like really powerful. So I was laying in bed and I was awake, and I was kind of just like trying to get sleepy so I can go to bed that night. And my bedroom door was shut, and I was just laying there, and all of a sudden I felt like someone was with me. I felt this heavenly presence come and fill the room. And then these 2 angelic beings manifest above me, and I'm laying in bed, and one is kind of to my left and one is to my right. And there were these like these women angelic beings with these big beautiful wings, and they had these white clothes on, and they were looking at me for a second, and then what they did was they reached their arms out and they took they reached their arms out and kind of like put it underneath me, and then they lifted my spiritual body out of my physical body. They like pulled it out.
Wow.
And so I could feel, I felt like this like a pop away out of the shell that I was in, you know? And as soon as I was out, the sensations and the sounds and the feelings and everything was like, it felt like home. That felt like where I was really from, you know, which it is. That really is where we're from. That is our eternal place, in our spiritual body. And
I'm
as soon
looking
as
at
I
your
was
book
out,
cover. I'm looking at your book cover right now. Is that it?
yeah,
That
yeah, yeah, that's it.
fan fantastic. But go ahead.
Yep, that is them. And so when so they were holding me and they started to lift me through the air in my bedroom, and they took me through the roof of the ceiling, and then they took me through the roof of the house, and then we started ascending into the sky, and I was just looking around at the night sky, and there were clouds here and there, and we were going up higher and higher. And then kind of in the distance, up in the distance, there was this cube, and we got up to it, and it was like this big house size, like steel blue colored cube, and it was just floating there with no sound and no fuel, and it wasn't moving. um and so when we got close enough, um a door opened on the side, but it wasn't like a doorway that opened. It was like the whole side of the cube lowered its density, kind of like dissolved, so that we could pass through it. And then when we finished passing through, it gained its density back. And so inside was this big white room, and it was just one single room inside of this thing. And the walls and the floor and the ceiling and everything in it was just like emitting its own white light. And there were all of these like moving boxes on the floor. And then there was this big one next to a wall that had a shelf on it, and they set me inside of that box next to the shelf on the wall. And then they hovered to the side of the room or the corner of the room, and then they just watched me. And so I was in this box. I was 6 or 7, and so I wasn't big, but this box was like up to my chest. And I was looking around the room, and I saw other boxes, and then on the other side of the cube I could see that doorway had been opened. That side of the cube was open, and there was another craft outside that was hovering outside of the cube, and there were these two men that looked human mostly, but I knew that they weren't human, and they were loading boxes either into that other craft or taking them out from that other craft. I'm not sure if they were loading them in or out. Um,
Wow.
but they didn't really pay any attention to me. But the craft outside of the cube was camouflaged or cloaked, kind of, because I could only kind of see it. You know, it was like kind of transparent.
Hmm.
But so I looked at the angels, and I had this sense of knowing that I was supposed to reach for one of the items on the shelf that I was next to. So this box I was standing in, there was a few feet away, there was this shelf on the wall, and it was like a 3-tiered shelf, and it had all these items scattered across each one of the shelves. And I was just flooded with this knowing that you need to reach, you need to get one of those items. And so I tried to I stretched my arm as far as I could, trying to reach something on the shelf, and I just couldn't reach. It was just too far away to reach it. And so I turned around and I looked at the angels, and they transferred this encouragement into me, like, keep trying. And so I did. I tried for a while longer, and I couldn't reach it. And so they floated back over to me, and they lifted me out of the box, and they took me out of the cube and they flew me back down to the house, and they through the roof and through the ceiling, and they dropped me back into my physical body, and I felt myself like pop back in, and they were gone as soon as I went back into my physical body. And I just remember laying there like I was in shock, and I had so many questions, but I was thinking like what, like why, why did they take me there? What was I, but now I wonder, were they expecting me to levitate out of the box? And I also wonder
Mm,
if, have you ever read UFO Sky Pilots by Grant Cameron?
I have not.
Okay. Okay. So, in that book, so I read that book while I was writing, and it brought me to tears because it was the first time that I kind of realized why I may have been asked to reach for items on a shelf inside of this UFO. So a lot of people experience their consciousness merging with the UFO by
Mm,
touching certain items inside of the craft, whether that's a shelf or the arm on a chair or a counter or something, and then it merges their consciousness with it, and they're able to pilot it. And so I wonder if these beings were seeing if little 6 or 7 year old me was ready to pilot a UFO. And while I was in it, I felt some kind of strange connection. And I've also heard that from countless other people as well that have had these types of experiences.
wow. That's huge because so much of what you're saying is so important for people to hear because you're not crazy. And there's other people that have experienced these things. And whether it be Bigfoot or UFO, we've all been told to shut up and go to work 9 to 5 and do what you're supposed to do, drive the speed limit. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, there is a whole lot more going on. And
Yeah.
we're in a time now, like with my show, I'm not here to suppress people. I'm here to hear the story. I'm here to be a platform to let people share their story and how it happened to them, because we have been oppressed in the past by just the way, I don't want to be too harsh on the past and civilization as it stands now, but if you've ever seen the movie They Live, that is what I'm talking about. Have you ever, you laughed, you know what movie I'm
I
talking about?
I know the concept of that movie, and I've seen
Yeah.
the trailer, and I've seen parts of it because it's funny, like, I'm so shocked that me and my husband haven't bought it yet because he's seen it, and we've
Yeah.
talked about it so many times, so I know exactly the concept you're talking about. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. To one degree or another, there's a lot of truth in that movie, in
Yeah.
my opinion. So, yeah,
Yeah.
no, all that you're saying is just spectacular. I'm gonna have you back. We're at 48 minutes. I got to hear your Bigfoot story. We're primary Bigfoot here, but now we're branching out because we have to, because Bigfoot is not just a biological creature. We're finding out all these
Yeah.
interdimensional qualities.
Yes.
Even I was mind spoke to, so they're psychic, their telepathic abilities, all of that. So
Yeah.
we're gonna wrap this episode up with your Bigfoot story, and
Cool.
then we're gonna bring you back for another episode. I can't get enough of your story. So what happened with the whole Bigfoot thing?
Okay, so this happened maybe 4 years ago, and that was after me and Mark and our kids moved up here to the Everett house, and we're surrounded by nature up here. We are adjacent to about 1,000 acres of private owned forest, and so
Wow.
we're in the middle of the woods. I mean, there are a couple neighbors, but it's nice and lots of nature. And so there's across down the dirt road, there's these trails that go through ponds and stuff like that. And so 3 or 4 summers ago, I went to go take a little walk by myself for like an hour and just have a nice little hike. And so it takes maybe 10 minutes to walk and get to where the trails start. And so I got into the trails, and it was like this warm, sunny summer day. It was beautiful. And it's like, it was like the last time that I would have expected something like this to happen. You know, you always think like when this stuff happens, it's going to be like, it's going to be at like 1 a.m. and it's going to be like, you know, dark and creepy, but it was like beautiful and sunny in the middle. It was probably like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that kind of like, that was kind of wild too. So anyway, so I'm walking through the trails, and it's just me on the trails. And all of a sudden I hear this like guttural growl come at me. And my first thought was, is there a bear like somewhere right around? Am I like running into a bear? Because I know that there's a bear den over there we've seen before, and we know there's black bears all up here. And so I'm looking everywhere trying to find a bear or anything that could explain this loud call that just came at me. And I don't see anything. And so I just keep walking, and then it happens again, but it comes from above me. And so I'm looking up into the trees, you know, and I'm looking like as far as I can see in all directions and through the trees, and I don't even see a fly. And that's kind of weird, you know. So I'm not seeing any squirrels, I'm not seeing a fly, I'm not seeing a mosquito, I'm not seeing anything. But and then these calls start coming from every single direction, including above me. They're coming from behind me, from in front of me, from left, from right, from far away, from right next to me, and above my head, and all at the same time. And all it's like there was multiple of these interdimensional Bigfoot beings basically calling at me, because it was all directed at me. And so, and it was like this deep guttural, like I've never even heard a sound like that before, you know, until I heard that. And so I turned around, and I was probably 7 or 8 minute walk until I hit the dirt road out of the trails. So I had to walk for 7 or 8 minutes to get out of the trails. And the entire time I kind of like sped walk out of the trails. The entire time they followed me. These calls were all around me until I hit the dirt road and got out of the trails. And I was just like, this is like that was some strange encounter, because an animal can't call above me and left and right and back and forth and in front of me and behind me. Yeah.
That so similar. I was what I call a bark growl. It's hard to explain. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you hear
Yeah.
them. I've heard them speak. Say "wado," which means thank you in Cherokee. I've heard the samurai chatter.
Wow.
I've heard the Sierra sound howls. Well, this is my friend Scout, and he told me his name through mind speak. But I was able to get a picture of him peeking out from behind a tree. He's got
Oh
the
my gosh.
he's got kind of like the Patterson Gimlin type Bigfoot, and his skin though is darker. So he allowed me to get a picture of him, or he didn't realize I was very quick at the camera and my tripod at the time, and I panned real quick and caught him. And so
Wow.
he's just peeking out from behind the tree, and I ended up gifting him because he knew I was gifting at the time. So there you go. That's Scout, and yeah, peeking out from behind the tree. So what you heard was real. Were they aggressive? Do you think they just wanted to let you know they exist, or were they trying to get you out of their area? What do you think?
It's hard to say, because I always try and think like, you know, did I feel a heavy, malicious, negative presence? No.
Okay.
You know, I didn't feel that. What I felt was this instinctual knowing to leave. And
Okay.
it was like, yeah, it was kind of like, if anything, it was like, get out of here,
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah. Hey, could you
And
leave? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And was that like, was it like they didn't, I don't know, like, would something have happened to me if I didn't leave? You know, if they didn't warn me to leave, or, you know, were they looking out for me, or was this something that was kind of like a little bit, you know, the opposite, like, you know, oh no, you know, we don't want you here because we just don't want you here, you know. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so I definitely consider that a Bigfoot encounter, because I've listened to countless stories that just, and I think in my book I said, like, this screams like your typical Bigfoot encounter, just
Oh,
like
without
by,
a doubt. And
yeah,
when you hear Bigfoot, it's like I tell everybody, when you hear Bigfoot, it is like nothing you've ever heard before. You don't
right,
sit there and go, "Oh, I wonder if that was maybe that was a Bigfoot." No, you're like, "Oh my
yeah,
gosh, what is going on? I'm hearing it, but my whole body is feeling it as well." Yeah, I
mm-hmm,
think, and then too, Samantha, there is a connection. This is me getting deep now. It's almost like when you become a knower, it's almost like you're good to go with them. And we even think there could be a connection. Like with my Bigfoot here, I've got 3 clans in my area. When I go down to see my buddies in North Carolina, it's almost, we believe there could be a connection in the sense that when I go down there, the Bigfoot down there are kind of like, ah, that's Bryan from Michigan. It's
oh,
like, yeah, so we do believe there is that quality, and that would be telepathic quality,
yeah,
that they're able to speak to each other clans from distances. You're basically, we call it being marked or tagged, as
okay,
a friend, as a friendly, so to speak. You're not going to harm them. You're not there to hurt their families. They
right,
mainly run in family groups. I mean, if you came along a single young male, and then depending on the type of Bigfoot, because then you've got the Bigfoot that are more human like, but then you've got the Bigfoot that are more animal like, and you catch those on the wrong day and they're hungry. Yeah, you're toast. You could be toast. I'm not saying they haven't killed people. There's a lot of those stories. Most of
yeah,
them are that because people shot at them first. And so that's their response. But yeah, no, I think you ran across a territory of you have to show me that on a map sometime, but a more friendly clan, and they just wanted you out of the area. They wanted to eat or whatever. Just, but I think they knew something about you because they made noise. You could have walked right
yeah,
by them. But they made noise, so
yeah,
they reckon whether it's your aura, we don't know. There's so much we could talk about today. The
yeah,
resonance or electrical vibe you get off, or your aura, whatever. I believe they're able to read us. They're able to know if I'm an idiot, if I'm going to try to shoot them. So yeah, so much to talk about, man. But yeah, no, I think he had a Bigfoot encounter with not just one, but a whole freaking clan, and that's super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so and that same area is where I saw the UFO a couple years ago, hovering over that forest area on my way home one night, that ended up following me home, and the UFO ended up coming down when I got into that area. And I know that Bigfoots and UFOs have kind of been seen in the same general areas, and I know people
Oh
talk about
yeah.
them having some kind of connection. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's been, and then just the next year after that was when me and my husband saw another UFO right above that area. And that ended up flying right over our property after hovering for over 10 minutes over the forest. And then that night was when I had the abduction experience. And
Oof.
so I've had some UFO encounters right above the area that I heard the Bigfoot stuff. And then there was also one night when I was I forgot to put out the trail cam when it was still daylight. And so it was maybe just after 10 o'clock. And so I decided to like put it on the side of the deck facing the forest. And so I went to step out, and I was like, Mark, can you come with me? Because it's dark and you can like stand there and talk to me while I something just fell off. And so, and I'm not one to like normally feel uneasy about things, you know, and be like, hey, come with me. I'm normally like, no, I'm fine. You know, like I'll go out. I don't care. You know, I'm not, but just something was like, come with me. Like, I think we're going to see something when I go out there. So, I went and I was like, I just like kind of walked out onto the deck barefoot real quick to tie the trail cam to the edge of the deck. And before I can even get to the edge of the deck, I heard these really heavy stomps that were on the edge of the woods. And so maybe, I mean, just a matter of steps away from the edge of that side of the deck, there's the edge of the forest. And uh but for the first so much of the forest right there, it's a lot of brush and a lot of like raspberry bushes and things like that. So it's not like so tall that like you can't see like an animal walking through it, you know, like whatever was there, I should have been able to see with my eyes, like
Wow.
100%. And
Wow.
so we were just, I was like, do you hear that? So he came out all the way and we were standing on the deck and we were listening to these stomps that were going left and right. And they would take 3 or 4 steps left and then 3 or 4 steps right. And it would just go back and forth and back and forth. And it was getting closer and closer and louder and louder. And we started shining flashlights into the woods and saying, like, hey, who's out there? Because like it was not a deer. It was not, I mean, I thought if this is any logical explanation, there's a black bear right there. How am I
Mm-hmm.
not seeing this huge black bear that I'm hearing these
Right.
big, heavy boom, boom stomps from? Or like a big 6.5 foot man with giant boots on or something, like, which I don't even think he would be able to make a noise that heavy. But we didn't see anything. We didn't see the brush moving. Nothing was moving. There was nothing there, but it was just feet away from us. And it got so loud and so heavy, and it was getting faster and faster, going back and forth and getting really close to us that we were just like, we got to go inside. I didn't even put the trail cam out because I didn't want to go that close to the edge where it was like right there. That was where we were
Yeah.
hearing it. Was it was like it was getting on the grass. It was like so close.
Wow.
And I thought it
You
was going to
know,
run on the deck, whatever it was.
I'm going with Bigfoot, but maybe
Right.
because of the aggressiveness, maybe a dog man. And that's not a good
Maybe.
thing. And that's not a good thing. Well, listen, Samantha, we got to go and wrap it up. And I
Okay.
got to have you back. I got to have you back. But right now, why don't you go ahead and tell people about your book, and we'll put a picture of your book and a link. You know, where can we find you at? Where can we find your book at and purchase it? Go ahead.
Okay, so my book is called Born Awakened, an Otherworldly True Story, and by Samantha Leifker. And so you can find that on Amazon. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook by looking up Born Awakened. Yeah, I'm also on Reddit and TikTok. Reddit, I recently started, I don't know if you use Reddit at all, but I
Not
started
as
like
of
a
right now.
group. Yeah,
Okay.
I started an experiencers group a couple months ago, and
Fantastic.
so yeah, it's called Ask
I'm going to get in on
Experiencers
that.
if anybody is on that. But yeah, I've had uh, some pretty cool conversations with people, kind of starting that group. Yeah, so that's where you can find me, Born Awakened.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put you back in the green room. Stay there. I'll be there in a moment. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. Samantha Leifker, buy her book, Born Awakened, on Amazon. We'll put a picture here and a link to it so you can, and then just follow her on Facebook, wherever. So much knowledge, so much wisdom, interesting information that we need to have as we walk down this road of this very strange journey. But to all of you at home, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Bigfoots of America podcast show, and we'll see you next time.